Welcome to the Synergistic Leader podcast, where we explore the key factors shaping leadership in education and unlock insights that drive change and make a difference. Now, here is your host, Dr. Beverly J. Irby.
Welcome to the Synergistic Leader, where we explore leadership that goes beyond authority. It's about synergy. I'm Beverly J. Irby, Regents Professor and Senior Associate Dean for Academics, and the Marilyn Kent Byrne Endowed Chair for Student Success in the College of Education and Human Development at Texas A&M University. I also serve as the Director of the Education Leadership Research Center. Now, I know the word synergy can raise eyebrows. In corporate circles, it's often dismissed as vague jargon, tied to failed mergers or empty promises or even greed. But in education, synergy is something very different. Here, it's not about corporate gain. It's about people. It's about bringing together beliefs, attitudes, talents, and perspectives so that together we can create something greater than any of us could achieve alone. The Synergistic Leader podcast is rooted in the synergistic leadership theory, the first published leadership theory of the 21st century in an educational administration journal, developed and tested by a team that I led. This theory integrates 4 tested factors: leadership behavior, organizational structure, attitudes, values, and beliefs, and external forces. It puts together those 4 factors into a dynamic, effective, and nonlinear model. Because leadership isn't one size fits all. It's not just about the person at the top. It's about how leadership behaviors flow through people, within teams, organizations, and communities. As we know, theory guides action. And the synergistic leadership theory maximizes collective strengths. That's what makes synergy in schools powerful, authentic, and transformative. Join us as we dive into real-world strategies, conversations, and insights to help you lead with impact, influence, and innovation. Because here, synergy means stronger schools, empowered teachers, and brighter futures for students. So ready to lead synergistically? Let's get started. We have a wonderful guest today, Dr. Jeff McCanna. He is an educational leader with over 3 decades of experiences in public education. His career began as a teacher and a coach at Teague Middle School in Humble, Texas from 1991 to 93. He then progressed through administrative roles within Aldine Independent School District, serving as assistant principal and principal at Parker Intermediate School, where he earned the title of Texas Administrator of the Year in 2003. Subsequently, he was appointed the district's Director of Human Resources, a position he held until 2015. Dr. McCanna's commitment to educational excellence led him to serve as the Chief Human Talent Director in Tomball ISD, where he was instrumental in forging innovative partnerships, notably with Texas A&M University, to support pre-service teacher development during the pandemic. His leadership extended to roles such as Chief of Human Resources at Adams 14 Public School District in Colorado, and more recently as Chief Human Capital Officer for Fargo Public Schools in North Dakota. As an alumni of Texas A&M University, Dr. McCanna was honored with the Distinguished Service Award in 2021 for his dedication to teacher support and innovative educational practices. Welcome, Dr. McCanna. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Irby. It's
Yes.
an honor to do anything with you in any type of work. you have really been a mentor to me since our work together at Salmons Elementary. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Well, Dr. McCanna, I'll be asking you a few questions now, and I know that you have some really experienced answers about these questions about synergistic leadership. So I'm really excited to get to interview you about this. So, Dr. McCanna, we've worked together over the years in schools and enhancing schools. So please tell our audience what you have found to be key leadership behaviors that shape principals to be able to strengthen and improve their schools.
Yes, when I think about that, Dr. Irby, and I spent some time really taking a look at schools that, whether they were turnaround or just consistently successful, and sometimes when you are successful, it's really hard to stay there. And I looked at the qualities of those leaders, and I wrote them all down and I bucketed them. And what I saw in those leaders that were most effective over time is clarity, the presence that they have, follow through was super foundational. The other thing in common out of the 5 buckets I put together was, those principals had an aligned vision, expectations that they modeled, and the follow through was always consistently done, especially in the hard work. They also had this belief in the importance of building capacity in all of their staff members, wherever they were, moving them to be better individuals, more instructionally sound, more proactive than reactive, through leadership pathways and apprenticeships. And then the last thing that really stood out when I looked at all of these effective leaders was the trust and the collaboration that they had with not just their leadership, but with the staff members that they had at their campus, and that super collaborative mindset.
That's great. And I've also worked with you in those schools. And another thing I think that I've also observed with you is that these principals take the ownership. It's not an outward blame game, so to speak, of why the children can't learn. They can learn. They take ownership. They say they can learn, and they will learn. And together, our teachers and myself as the principal, this is what they say, will make this happen. And I have seen that happen as we've worked together in these schools.
Yeah, the dig in focus that they have, just understanding and being vulnerable about where they're at, and then owning how are they going to get to where they need to be in the benefit of all kids.
Absolutely. Well, that's certainly synergy.
Mm-hmm.
So the second question is about the fact that the synergistic leadership emphasizes the significance of organizational structures in influencing leadership effectiveness. So what have you found about decision-making and how it should be structured to empower educators and staff?
Yeah, that was one of the big focuses that we've worked on wherever I've been, and that's really having a shift. In some places, that shared decision-making wasn't as foundational. It wasn't as broad. It wasn't as widespread. It wasn't as consistent. And we believe that consistent across all campuses in sharing decision-making is key, involving stakeholders through panels, work groups, focus-driven collaboration, being super inclusive, being transparent, really being timely. In our busy world, sometimes we want to do these things, but the rest of our jobs as principals and leaders starts, to put us in this quicksand. And what we've really focused on is calendaring and structuring our commitment to the work and protecting time by empowering educators and by really focusing on innovation and stick-to-itiveness. And then really having this mindset of moving away from just compliance to this co-creation mindset where we start thinking out of the box. Because if we continue to do the same things the same way within the organization, we're going to have the same results, and those results just are not good enough. So really being open, vulnerable, and transparent, and then having pathways that are strategically mapped out to getting us to where we need to be.
Thank you, Dr. McCanna. That's certainly true in terms of an organizational structure. We have to have that structural pathway to get to our vision. We have to be able to drive the mission based on that structural pathway. And so thank you so much for your insight. I think that will help others as they are moving towards synergy. So I have another question for you. What specific key initiatives from the district or campus levels have driven student success in the Fargo Public Schools, where you are now?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few things I'm super proud of that we've been able to do the last 3 years. One of them, of course, is with the RACE program out of Texas A&M. We were looking at some of the results of that work and are incredibly proud of what has been done through the RAISE initiative within our schools. We also realized that Fargo Public Schools, just like school districts across North Dakota and across the United States, struggle finding highly effective teachers. So we have put in a Grow Our Own Teacher pathway where we wrote grants and we can fully fund our current paras to become teachers through some work we've done with the state in this apprenticeship work with our partner universities. We really did some amazing work with Vital to embed these well-designed, thought-out strategic surveys that allow our staff members to have voice and allow us to have an understanding of what we don't know, like we don't know what we don't know. So getting our staff to complete these surveys and then being very intentional about this is what we've heard, now this is what we're doing, right? So that they see that what they're telling us drives our focus moving forward, and we're listening to what they say they need to be more successful. And I will tell you that, when you think about driving student success, adult capacity really influences student success, right? So when we think about being in the kid business, we have to make sure our adults have the skill sets, the capacity, the resiliency to do the hard work, sustainable work over time, and then just have systems in place that are focused on long-term improvements. And so really moving at the speed of quality is something that we've really focused on, and being strategic and intentional with every single thing we do. And then also being reflective on how can we, if it's not the result we want, if it's not outcomes that we've desired, how do we pivot and shift so that we, can make up any ground that we've lost?
Excellent. As we've worked together with Project RAISE, you mentioned that with Texas A&M and Fargo Public Schools, and we appreciate the collaboration and the partnership. I think some of the things that have potentially assisted the district with their key initiatives, and I think we've talked about this, having conducted an external root cause analysis and then a follow-up on that, another root cause analysis in the midst of the intervention. I think that has helped. The principals were asking for the second round, when can we get this? We really need this to move on with our campus improvement plans, our strategic plans. And so they were excited to get it and to see how far they had come as well. And also, we have had intentional virtual coaching and sometimes on-the-ground coaching as well as from the district and working with the district going in with the directors or associate superintendents going in to assist. So I think that it has been a great collaboration and partnership and a great synergy, actually, working together to bring about a change and school enhancement. That's what we're really working on, enhancing the schools. And as we say, and we've talked often, even A schools can be enhanced and get better, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't be more proud of the work that was done with those campuses and the A&M team through Project Raise. It's super exciting about what's been done. And even, as we close this project out this year, even more excited about where we're going.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we think about another question here. And how do external factors such as policy changes or societal expectations or financial constraints, which we all face, impact your own personal leadership approach? And what strategies do you use to navigate these challenges?
Yeah, so our team, and whether it's the cabinet or our human capital team, we're struggling with everything that you just mentioned. And so what we're really focused on is how do we stay anchored to our core values? How do we consistently focus on equity, growth, and not just our own well-being, but those of our teammates? We look at everything very reflectively when we think about where we want to go. In pathways, we talk about scenarios and downstream, like if we did this, as we navigate this path of uncertainty, like can we think through what might be the outcomes that will be positive and what might, impact us, especially, the outcomes of our students. And we also have to really, we're struggling with budget deficit. This will be our second year, and we have been very intentional about protecting our instructional core and making sure that financial constraints are not impacting the direct work that we do with students, and really looking at what are some other things that we could look at adjusting or refining so that we focus and keep our priorities on student outcomes. We're really, and we are meeting with our board, after the board meetings and looking at where we're at with the district and what we want our culture to be, and how do we have policies in place that support that and promote that. And then the other thing that we are super mindful of is we want to respond instead of react, right? We have to really stay grounded and think through every single thing that we do. And of course, being proactive is great, but sometimes there's things that you have to react to. And when we have to, it's like, let's make sure we have a good, solid response that's thought through and inclusive of other team members, so that when we make a decision because of something, whether it's financial or another external force, that we have the best thoughts in the room, the best minds in the room, and ultimately what's best for kids. And then how do we put systems and processes and steps in place, to validate and to implement that response.
Thank you, Dr. McCanna. And though we all face those external forces, it's wonderful to hear that, students are still at the center of our actions and our reactions to those external forces. Thank you all so much there in your school district in Fargo. So my last question to you today is, what do you believe is the most outstanding quality or qualities of effective leadership today?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that, come to mind, but if I were going to narrow it down to like the top 4 or 5, I think that in this world that we live in, authenticity is super important. It allows you to build trust, to have that transparency, especially, We talked about external forces in the last question, in the responses, to be able to really be vulnerable about where you're at and get as many people thinking about possible outcomes. I think we live in a world where you have to be have resiliency as leaders. That endurance of our educational leaders is critical in long-term success. We have to understand and be system thinkers, and really, again, know that there's going to be short-term outcomes and long-term impact. And how do we, as we're putting systems in places and processes, have an awareness of both? And I think the other thing that could have mentioned on the front side of this is when you look at qualities of really effective leaders, and where success happens is when you have somebody that's a deep listener, right? That really seeks to understand and then acts with encouragement and courage, right? So you have to really listen and value what you hear to the voice of the people that are in the work if you truly want to have sustainable outcomes that are in the best interest of students. And then I think that the one thing that we all have to be mindful of is that people have opportunities, right? If you don't value, appreciate, and grow your staff, they're going to go, right? And so having a focus on the culture and that connection to your humans, to your team members, to your work family is super critical. So just like to recap: authenticity, resiliency, somebody that's a system thinker, somebody that can really truly listen and have this focus on seeking to understand, and then really be focused on the culture and your staff well-being.
Those are great qualities for all of our up-and-coming leaders to work on, and also for our active leaders that we have in schools as well. Thank you so much for your insights. So thank you to Dr. Jeff McCanna today for joining us and showing us what synergy looks like in action. So thank you for joining us on the Synergistic Leader podcast today. Remember, synergy in leadership creates strengths in school.
Thank you for tuning in to the Synergistic Leader podcast. You can look for our episodes on YouTube and Spotify.
This podcast is housed in the College of Education and Human Development at Texas A&M University, where we transform lives.